start there with the Cotton Bowl Classic. Alabama, number one in the nation, taking on Cincinnati. Cincinnati is looks like consensus 13.5 point underdog. Cincinnati, of course, finished 13-0. Over under 57.5. This game's at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN in AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. A couple things of note here. It's the College Football Playoff, so there's not like who's sitting out and who's not. I think the biggest thing to note is that John Mechie will be out for Alabama. He was more of their possession receiver. He had just under 100 catches on the year. He's hurt and he'll be out. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, right? Yeah, I mean, it's just looking at the matchup. So I'll let you dive into this first, and then I'll kind of bounce off you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I said this when these lines first came out. The fact that John Mechie III is out is not just big because he has the most receptions and the most targets. It's because he serves as a blocker for the rest of the wide receivers, and that is a extremely key player to be losing when you take on this Cincinnati secondary. So let's start.
It's also huge in like just chain moving, like third down, go get open, find a hole in the defense.
Yeah, locker room, everything. I mean, the reason why, like I said on a previous podcast, the reason Devontae Smith won the Heisman is because John Mechie was 20 yards downfield throwing blocks for him. So, but you know what? Congrats to the group of five for making the national semifinal. Congrats on having a point spread, Cincinnati. You should pat yourselves on the back. You have a point spread that's lower than when Michigan State and Washington both made the playoffs. So at least you're getting way more respect in the betting market than what some previous Power 5 teams have got. So that might be the only victory that Cincinnati gets out of this game. The good on good is Alabama offense versus Cincinnati defense. And Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy thanks in part to being the highest graded quarterback per PFF. Now, it's not because he's a deep bomb thrower like Mac Jones that just sat in a crowded pocket and hit everybody 30 yards downfield. He took what the defense gave him. He finished with 42 TDs to 4 INTs, almost never makes a mistake. He was only intercepted twice and 184 dropbacks with pressure this season. That's impressive. The question is who's going to replace John Mechie? Bill O'Brien, COVID-free now, took the podium yesterday, that'd be Tuesday, and talked about who will be the receivers to replace John Mechie. And I think a lot of people were kind of expecting A.G. Hall to be the guy that busts out, on the national scene, on the national stage. But the first two names that came out of Bill O'Brien's mouth was Ja'Cory Brooks and JoJo Earl. So I would look for those two guys to be the ones that get the secondary reads from Bryce Young and get the action. Hall was just mentioned as a guy that's improved, according to Bill O'Brien. So whether, and if anything we've learned from Brett McMurphy is don't trust anything one coach says, but if they're holding Hall back, then they're talking, they're purposely doing it at the podium. So I think there's a lot of questions when it comes to the targets without John Mechie. And, frankly, the explosive plays that depended on his blocks are not going to be there against Sauce Gardner, against Kobe Bryant, against Brian Cook, who is like the highest graded safety in all of college football. So, it's a pretty simple game plan. Brian Robinson Jr. came to the podium and said, last time we went to the state of Texas, we got embarrassed. Our team was embarrassed against Texas A&M. We haven't hurt that bad in years. I am motivated. The whole team is motivated every day to return to the state of Texas and get redemption. He's a fifth-year senior running back. Back half of the season, he was pretty hobbled with injury. He's completely healthy now. He comes into this game, and it makes sense for Saban to hold all questions about the wide receiver group back until the national championship game. It makes sense for him to avoid Gardner, Bryant, and Brian Cook. And Bryce Young has been so good at hitting defenses where they're weakest. In this case, it's a defensive line that all weigh under 300 pounds. The Cincinnati defensive line is not going to be able to get a push. They're not going to be able to fill the gaps. Against Georgia, Seth McLaughlin took over at center for Alabama. Chris Owens played the game of his life at right tackle. And more importantly, I think if you go deeper into that box score, Cameron Latou lined up 22 times as a blocker. Kendall Randolph lined up 10 times as a blocker. Those both are tight ends. So there was some 12 that was thrown in so that they could get further down the field in running plays. And Alabama only ran 12 and 20% of plays this season. And when they run 12, it's absolutely a rushing play. Bill O'Brien was the master of 12 as the Houston Texans head coach. So when Brian Robinson Jr. was healthy, the fifth-year senior running back, Alabama ran him 36 times against Ole Miss for 4 touchdowns. The Tide ate up 38 minutes of clock. They won 42-21. Cincinnati's offense, they're not Ole Miss, but this is the game plan on offense. You've seen the total move down from 58 down to 57. I think a part of that is the fact that Alabama is not going to have explosive passes. They're not going to try. They're going to keep their wide receiver group kind of quiet for this game. It feels Notre Dame-ish from last year. So the other question is the Cincinnati offense. They've flashed a huge increase of formations as the season has gone along. In Cincinnati's opener, they ran just 4 different third down formations against Miami of Ohio. A couple weeks ago against East Carolina, they ran 10 different formations. Against Indiana, they ran 8 different formations. So they have been able to adapt to the defense that's in front of them. Now, I don't know what they're going to do against this Alabama defense. I don't know where the weak spot is. This is, they've been shutting rushing attacks down, 11th in defensive havoc. Nobody can run on them. Nobody's been able to pass on them. Cincinnati's 10th in standard down success rate, but they're 83rd in passing down success rate, which means if you get Desmond Ridder and Jerome Ford into passing downs, like if you're at 2nd and 10, you're already in a passing down. That's where their success rate completely flies off the table. They are based on staying in standard downs, and doing that against Alabama is going to be rough. I just don't see a situation where Jerome Ford is moving the pile and getting space against this Alabama front with a stuff rate rank of 10th. Alabama has 106 tackles for loss this season. I think that's 4th in the nation. They're in everybody's backfield. Will Anderson, not even mentioned for the Heisman Trophy, is probably going to go nuts here. So what do? You probably move the pocket around. You move Desmond Ridder around. You try to pick your spots. And, play action passing has been a big part of Desmond Ridder's game. 8 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play. But you're going up against Christian Harris, one of the highest-graded linebackers in man-to-man coverage. Jalen Amur-Davis and Jordan Battle ranked top 15 of all individual coverage defenders in zone. I don't think play action is going to work here. I don't think Desmond Ridder is going to work. I don't think Jerome Ford has the speed. This is just a game where Saban gets a 3-score lead, and you can bet it's Brian Robinson from here on out. And then we go back to the drawing board, and Alabama is going to morph right back into some sort of dynamic passing attack for the national championship. So for me, under, but I make it at 58. So I would probably take the 57, stop there. I'm not really so sure about taking a first half under. Alabama may do what they can and go up tempo or slow the tempo down to get those 3-score lead and then sit on the ball. I believe sitting on the ball is the game plan for the second half with the lead. I just don't know what the pace is going to be in the first half. So for me, full game under. This is a game where the score is stuck. I don't know if you agree, but I think the game is sitting around 19 to 21 point Alabama lead, and that back door is way open with 4.5 minutes left for Cincinnati to try to get in. That's why I'm hesitant to touch this point spread. At 14, you're going to get a ton of Cincinnati money. At 13, you're going to get Alabama money. And so I'd rather play it live and hit Alabama single digits if there's something crazy with a turnover or special teams or anything. That's the game plan for the side.
I couldn't disagree more. I think Cincinnati's live in this game. I think everyone is drunk on Alabama because of what they did to Georgia in one game, and they're just have flashbacks of this is Alabama, what we saw last year, and what people are failing. It's the same thing's happened with Georgia. We'll talk about everyone now is just Georgia's vulnerable. Who cares about the whole body of work? We'll just go based on this one game we just saw. Let's just talk about this Alabama team all year. One of the most inconsistent teams in the country. All right, let's blow out Miami, a Miami team that ended up being bad. And then we almost lost to Emory Jones. The same Emory Jones who can't beat Central Florida in a bowl game. You should have lost to Emory Jones, by the way. And then, you blow out Ole Miss. You look great. Next week, you lose to Zach Calzada in Texas. And then, you blow out Mississippi State. The next week, you're right there with Tennessee at home in the fourth quarter until you pull away late. You almost lost at home to LSU and their backups in a 20-14 game. And then at home against Arkansas, you struggle there. You win by 7 in a spot you said Arkansas didn't even care about. You win 42-35. Then you have to go 4 overtimes to beat TJ Finley, who couldn't hit a wide open receiver if his life depended on it against, guess what, an AAC team that beat Auburn in a bowl. You need to win 24-22 in a game you should have lost in 4 overtimes. And then you blow out Georgia. I mean, this is one of the most inconsistent teams from a coverage standpoint, from an offensive line standpoint. And now you lose Mechie, and now everyone just has crowned Bama. I make this line 9. I think Cincinnati's getting way disrespected here. They have the best secondary in the nation, by far, bar none. Georgia's secondary is their weakness. That's what Alabama attacked. Good for them. We've been saying that all year. Georgia's secondary hasn't really been tested. Cincinnati's secondary is in a different stratosphere than Georgia's. They have the 2 best corners in all of college football and one of the best safeties. I mean, I could go on and on about that. They're not going to get anything through the air. They're going to hit some plays. I'm just saying, compared to what we saw against Georgia. I mean, look, Sauce Gardner's given 136 yards on 36 targets. He's allowed a 20 quarterback rating. 20. The next best is Riley Moss, who plays in the Big Ten. It's at 40. And then you got Kobe Bryant, who won the Thorpe Award. That pair's allowed 3 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the year. Gardner, by the way, Sauce Gardner is the best corner in college football. 0 touchdowns, 9 interceptions in 1,100 career snaps. Is that good? Sounds good. And, this Cincinnati team, they play up and down to their competition all year long. I expect a really good effort here. Look, I think Alabama's going to try to Notre Dame this game and just run it a lot. They'll have some success there. But Cincinnati's still top 5 EPA per rush on defense. Their linebackers are excellent. Their safeties are excellent. Their corners are great. The loss of Mechie, I think they're going to feel it. And on the offensive side of the ball, I'm a little bit worried. I mean, look, you can't run on Alabama. Alabama's one consistent aspect of their team all year has been their run defense. And they're, arguably the best run defense. They're right there with Georgia. So Ken Ford, with a little chip on his shoulder, get much going? I don't know. I don't think they're going to have much success. I think Ritter needs to use his legs, and that's something that has given Saban defenses issues in the past as a mobile quarterback. They're going to have to explosive plays through the air, which is the strength of the Cincy offense, through play action. And I mean, they have an NFL caliber quarterback, Cincy, which is big here. So, and just the Mechie loss is big. I mean, besides Williams, no other Alabama receiver has more than 32 catches or 333 yards on the year. And now you're going up against the best secondary in the country. Bama offensive line also just gives up a ton of negative plays, which Cincy can exploit. I mentioned they have great linebackers: Pace, Dublanco, Beavers. Sanders is great off the edge. Curtis Brooks is a menace pass rusher on the interior. So this is the best secondary that Alabama will face all year. And it's an Alabama team that could have lost to Auburn, could have lost to LSU, could have lost to Arkansas, could have lost to Florida. I mean, I can go on and on. So I'll be interested to see what Alabama does with Jamison Williams. I think a slot, because that's where you have to attack. That's where you have to attack Cincinnati. And Houston put Dell, who's one of the best receivers in the country, in the slot, a season high 53 snaps in that AAC championship game. And he had a really big game. So I think that I love Cincinnati here, especially if you can get 14. Wouldn't be shocked if they win this game outright. Heard it here first. And I actually have them in a round robin underdog moneyline parlay. Maybe I'll look foolish. Fine. They're a fucking 2 touchdown underdog. They get blown out, so be it. But I see a lot of paths to success here. And I just think this Alabama team, look, we get good Alabama, they can blow them out. We get bad Alabama, they'll lose this. It'll go to 4 overtimes. And hopefully TJ Finley hits a wide open guy where they decide to go for 2. Cincinnati, I think, is going to be aggressive. I think there's going to be a ton of Cincinnati fans here. I think they might even have a home field advantage, like from the crowd. I mean, Alabama's been here a million times. They're going to go here and travel on New Year's Eve. Everyone I talk to in Ohio that's anywhere affiliated with the Cincinnati program is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go to this game. So I think there's going to be 80% Cincinnati fans in the crowd. I think their Tickle's going to be really aggressive here. They're not going to kick field goals. They're going to go for it on 4th down. So you don't have a field goal kicker anyway. I think Cincy's live. They'll be in this game. I expect the game plan from Bama to run the ball, power heavy, try to Notre Dame this game. But this Cincinnati secondary is the best in the nation. It's going to keep them in this game. Ritter can make enough plays. You like the under. I like Cincy. I like the Bama team total under 35.5.
I listen, I'm not going to fault you for taking Cincinnati outright here. I mean, there's a few double-digit dogs I had my eyes on during bowl season, but Cincinnati does have a path to give Alabama some problems, and I just think they're always going to be within striking distance. And plus, look at Alabama's game plan; it's just rushing. So milking clock. Definitely, I would love it if you're right. If Cincinnati has some success, I definitely would not mind getting in live on Alabama at a lower number. But I think everybody should keep in mind when it comes to live betting, these 2 head coaches rank 2nd and 7th in middle 8. pay attention to who wins the coin flip. Pay attention who's going to get back-to-back possessions at halftime, and the live betting will take on from there. So if you don't join Stuck on the Side, you can definitely follow me from my all hands family meeting in front of the TV while I'm pushing some cash over on some live betting on the side here.
Yeah, I believe that the under 35.5 on Bama team total and my Cincy +4. I have some +16.5, some +14. I'll probably add some +13.5, but I'm sure that there'll be public money on Bama to push this back up at 1 point to 14. And they're correlated in a way. I don't see Cincinnati being able to get to 28 here. And so not only are they correlated, so there's also a chance where if Ritter has a really bad game and they can't run the ball, and then Alabama is just running it and Notre Daming this game, which they did in Notre Dame, there's a chance Alabama wins this game like 31-10 too. So I think that there's a way that you can get the team total under of Bama and then not cover. But I don't think
they want to be flashy. They don't want to be flashy heading into the national championship game. Just like their fans.
Yeah, especially if you assume they're going to get Georgia again, because Georgia's the favorite. You just threw all over Georgia, right? And now you don't have Mechie, and it's like, do we really want to show more of what we're doing from our passing attack? Because that's all Georgia's going to be. Georgia wins this. If Georgia beats Michigan, we'll talk about that game in a second. The entire prep for Georgia from between Saturday and the national championship will be, how do we stop Jamison Williams, Bryce Young, and the Alabama passing attack, right? So you just played them, showed them a lot. You probably don't want to show a lot more on tape.